You're listening to Mando Radio. Welcome back to the show. We've had 3 episodes of The Mandalorian so far. How are you doing, Pops?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Fantastic. I'm a little tired, but I am ready and excited because so far from what I'm seeing on the interwebs, this is the most acclaimed episode of The Mandalorian to date.
Mm-hmm.
People seem to really, really love this episode. Before we dive into that, though, we do have some news that just came out yesterday, over the weekend. According to Forbes, and they're reporting off of someone else's numbers. Whose numbers is it? Parrot Analytics. They measure demand for a streaming service's subscriber base, how much they're watching things. Not necessarily watching. And it doesn't even say how many subscribers they have, but somehow they have some metric that they call demand. And with only 3 episodes, The Mandalorian has surpassed Stranger Things. And 7 days out from its season 1 launch, demand for Disney Plus's The Mandalorian in the United States is 298% ahead of CBS All Access Star Trek show, 175% of HBO's Westworld on the 7th day of season 2, 72% ahead of BBC's Doctor Who, and 69.8% ahead of Netflix's Stranger Things on the 7th day after its season 2 debut. So that's as apples to apples as you can get. The question is, for me, I have no idea how they measure that, because I'm sure Disney is not publishing these numbers. So they must have a bot that somehow scrapes this data, or I'm not even sure how they would do that. But the moral of the story is The Mandalorian is now more in demand than Stranger Things. So that's big news.
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, there are some very happy Disney Plus executives. Very, very happy. Oh, that image was interesting. It's not still from the show. That's an image of the costume on display at an event that they did when the show launched. So that's actually one of the set used costumes just out on display in Los Angeles. So that's why that didn't look like it was from the show, because it's not. Alright, are we ready? Let's dive in to episode 3. Where do we start? We'll skip the recap, of course. Yes. So, you know what we're forgetting? Before we dive in, just so that we're totally clear what's about to happen, we need to set off the alarm. This is your spoiler alert. If you have not watched Season 1, Episode 3 of The Mandalorian yet, you need to stop listening to us right now, hop on over to Disney Plus, and watch Season 1, Episode 3, because we're about to go into all of the details of this episode with a fine-tooth comb. So, you have now been warned. So we begin with the Mandalorian arriving back on this planet with the child. And is this the part where the child hops out and tries to get the... Yeah.
Yeah.
So they kind of set it up ahead of time, having the child go for that little, trinket, basically, is what the child thinks it is.
The little knob on the shifter or whatever.
Yeah, which is kind of neat. So that's a little bit of foreshadowing of what's to come. But then, what I found interesting after the fact, having watched this episode 4 or 5 times now, he gets off of his ship, he's got the child in that carriage thing, and as he's walking through town, if it'll queue up for me, as he's walking through town, none of the other tracking fobs are going off. Like, everyone is watching him with the child as they walk through this little village. Right, they walk in from the shipyard here, right? Like, everyone is out. Everyone's out and about. So why aren't there tracking fobs going off now? Because they do later,
Mm-hmm.
right? I thought that was interesting. I'm curious to know why that is. But then he kind of does what you hoped he wouldn't do. Were you surprised that they had him actually deliver the child?
I don't know, kind of.
You were surprised?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect, the child had actually saved him, so you didn't expect him to just, like, give it up. But, I mean, I recognized maybe he's more interested in the armor than the kid. Because he knew what he was going to be getting, I think.
Yeah, but... Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised, too. I was very shocked that he just kind of just dropped the child and didn't even... Like, he asked the question, like, what are your plans for it?
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't a hint that he was going to... So his tracking fob is active.
Right, but it almost looked like he turned it on and then went over to look at the child.
But
Like, it wasn't on when they first came in, was it?
yeah. As soon as they open that door, you can start hearing the beeping.
Oh, okay.
Because the one in the cantina where all the other bounty hunters are just hanging out, theirs just come back on as soon as they leave that building.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'd be curious to know what... I have to suspend my disbelief on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So they scan him. He gets his Camtono of Beskar. And then he asks the client, what are your plans for it? And I almost thought he was going to like have the stormtroopers jump him or something. I kind of expected that at that point. But it was just enough, just a little bit of a hint of what his actions were going to be later on.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like we're struggling with internet down here tonight. So he gets his Camtono, and then he heads into... They refer to it as a covert, where they're hiding out, all the Mandalorians. And I was surprised when he takes the Beskar into the armorer, and they start talking about what they're going to build out of what he brought her. That heavy infantry Mandalorian comes in and starts harassing him. I found that, I don't know, maybe he's just fed up of being stuck underground for so long.
Yeah, hidden.
So he's kind of getting cranky, cabin fever, perhaps. But and then that scene kind of indicates a little bit of who the armorer must be. Like, the armorer must be... We can only assume right now, we don't have any other information. The armorer must be someone of some stature amongst this clan.
Right, because they all defer to her.
Yeah, or at least they all listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they would defer to her in battle or not, I don't know. But I thought that was interesting. But the other thing that was interesting that I picked up on when they're talking about his signet of how he sustained the damage to his armor. There was a mudhorn, and he said that it wasn't a noble kill because he had help from an enemy. So he's still in his... That's the training that he's coming from. That's the background that he has, is that when he's in the throes of battle, like, if he's defeating his quarry by himself, that's noble. Whereas getting help from the child made that not a noble kill. So he instinctively, or just by training, just by whatever... He sees the child as he sees anyone as his enemy, is what it sounds like to me. If you're not a Mandalorian, you're an enemy of Mandalore. Particularly the client, because they're Imperials. As this guy's very aggressive in expressing his displeasure for the Beskar having been seized by the Imperials. So this character was voiced by Jon Favreau. That's actually Jon Favreau's voice, which is kind of cool. Not portrayed by him. This is actually the same actor, if I understand correctly. This is the same actor from the very first scene that's harassing our blue Mithril friend. that tries to go and
Oh
jump
yeah,
the
right
Mandalorian.
in the cantina.
Says
or
you
whatever at the
spilled my
beginning.
drink. That's the
Yeah.
same actor.
Okay.
And actually, this is going to be in just a few days, like at the end of the week. This is going to be a new Black Series Hasbro figure,
Okay.
the Infantry Mandalorian, which is it's a good look. That's really cool looking armor, in my opinion. So then the armor they scuffle and then we get another great catchphrase. There's a great catchphrase on every single episode of this. Have you noticed that?
Uh-huh.
So this week it's "This is the way," because they all repeat that after she says it.
Mm-hmm.
So now every post that I see on Facebook where someone makes a statement about the show, something that
They end
everyone
it with,
agrees with,
yeah,
and
this is
everyone
the way.
says "This is the way."
Okay.
Because from the first week, it was "I have spoken," right? But we still haven't gotten to the episode where he says "Yeah, good, yeah."
Mhm. Right, and we haven't seen some of the other characters yet either.
That's right.
The ones that we did see in the
In the
trailer
trailers.
haven't shown up yet in the series.
That's correct. Cara Dune has not shown up yet. Bill Burr's character has not shown up yet. And we even see glimpses from the trailers of IG-11 back in action.
Right.
So presumably he gets repaired
Mm-hmm.
and put back together. Yeah, in Star Wars, if you're unfamiliar, droids, when they get blown up to a certain extent, like in A New Hope, R2-D2 gets blasted when he's riding in Luke's X-Wing, but they just, I don't know, they slap a new dome on him and he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
We get a few more glimpses of these flashbacks of presumably what are the Mandalorian and his parents, and much like, instead of it just being like a split second, you've got a couple more seconds to
there's
look
more
at
detail.
the droid gunship and the super battle droids.
Right, and you get the impression too that what he's seeing is what they refer to as the purge.
Presumably.
I'm assuming, right?
I don't know. I have to
Yeah.
go and watch Star Wars Rebels. I haven't caught up on it yet. I caught
Mhm.
up on all of the Mandalorian related episodes of the Clone Wars, but this doesn't happen, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. I might have it backwards. But yeah, they stick him in that little cellar and then boom. That's pretty traumatic, I can imagine. Even for Star Wars, that's
Mhm.
a bit much. That's like Boba Fett picking up Jango Fett's helmet in episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then voila, he's all shiny.
So that's his new armor.
That's his new armor that he decides to walk into the cantina with, drawing lots of attention because everyone knows what it is, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found it interesting too that like right away he just got paid, he just got his new armor, right away he's on to the next job. So to me that kind of indicates that he's not doing this. He's like, the whole premise of the lone gunslinger is that they just kind of do what they want. They're just out there just causing a ruckus. Like the Clint Eastwood movies, like he's just there. He's just doing what he wants to in the Wild West. Whereas this indicates to me that he's not motivated by those same reasoning. There's not the same motivation. Because what I suspect he's doing is he's trying to contribute to the reestablishment, or like the restoring their clan to some kind of normal situation,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being on the run and being in hiding.
Okay.
And this is how he's able to help do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the first episode, when he gets his first piece of Beskar, you'll notice that when he gives the armorer the piece of Beskar, he also gives her all of the money that he got. Grief Karga gives him calamari flan, four pieces, we don't know the denomination, but he gives all of it to the armorer. So
Mm-hmm.
I can only hypothesize, but I think maybe the reason why he's so motivated for his next job, in part might be because he's trying to forget the child, but at the same time it might also be because that's just what he's doing. That's his job.
Mm-hmm.
But then he asks Grief what they're going to do with the child, and decides, whatever. We'll hop in our starship. I thought that was interesting too when he flashed his Beskar. He got 2 pieces of Beskar.
Yeah, he said, "Yeah, I'm rich too," and he pulls out the Beskar that he's got in his jacket.
That was good foreshadowing too.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see the Mandalorian get that off of him
Mm-hmm.
at some point. That was the first thing that went through my head. My thought didn't first go to, okay, that's going to play into the plot later. My first thought was, oh, he should beat him up and take the Beskar.
Mm-hmm.
But let's jump to where he's in his ship. There we go. Nice shiny armor in his ship. Goes to put his ship in gear and remembers the child was playing with that little knob that he left unscrewed and realizes that he's made a mistake. That was fantastic. That was like a really good moment in this episode. You really felt it. It's fantastic. You know, a credit to the composer, whose name I can't pronounce, and also to Pedro Pascal for the work that he's doing to be able to get that emotional reaction out of the audience with the helmet on,
Mm-hmm.
where you can't see any of his
Expressions, yeah.
and the music at the same time really adds to that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fantastic. Really did a fantastic job building this moment. And this moment's halfway through the episode. So this is like the pinnacle of...
Well, this is the turning point too. I mean, I think, you know, if you think of it as, I mean, if this guy is an outlaw already, now he's going to be even more of an outlaw by going against the guild, right? The rules of the guild are you turn in your mark and you forget about it. And now he's going to go back and
Yeah.
get the kid.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I like his strategy here. It demonstrates that he knows what he's doing. Like, he does his recon first. He creates a distraction by destroying the droid on the front door.
But even in his recon, like he's going around the building and then he finds the little ball that
Oh yeah, right.
in the
carriage.
dumpster.
Yeah, I forgot
Right.
about that.
So
Oh, and there. This was in another episode. I think it was another episode. No, I think it was this one. This bar right here. I'm circling it with my mouse. This is the same tube from the first Death Star trash compactor. Han Solo was lifting a tube up to try to
right.
hold the doors open.
Mhm.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
That's the exact same one.
Right.
I thought that was funny. Random little Easter eggs. That's an Easter egg.
Mhm.
There's some discussion or some confusion, I guess, between a reference and an Easter egg. The Mithril references Life Day, which is a direct reference to the holiday special. But that little pole in the back, that's an Easter egg. It's
Mhm.
hidden. It's not
Mhm.
something that
Right. You don't
is
even
blatantly
You
obvious.
wouldn't notice it.
If you didn't, if
Yeah.
you didn't realize it from the trash compactor.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's gonna scope it out. And I like right there, he touches his helmet.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what that does. Like, is that connected to the scope in some way? Like, how does he get that extra hearing? Oh, and then he's using his thumb
Mm-hmm.
to change something on the scope, perhaps. That's cool. I'm already dreaming of the day when I can 3D print his rifle.
Mm-hmm.
All you need is a decent sized 3D printer and a long enough. You have to buy the right aluminum or metal pipe to reinforce it, and then you can make his rifle. So this is awesome. Oh yeah, and whistling birds. That's cool too. So he infiltrates. He makes his way in. Some really good combat. He uses basically all of his weapons. He uses his blaster. He doesn't really use the rifle.
Although he
In
used
close
it at the
quarters.
beginning just to
Yeah.
figure out what was going on inside the building.
He uses his vibro knife when he grapples that stormtrooper from behind,
Mm-hmm.
and then he uses. Oh, there it is. He does use it
Yeah.
indoors. And he uses the whistling birds. So he's got the child now. And he spared Dr. Pershing. I thought that was interesting. I wonder why he didn't
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because he was defenseless and wasn't trying to fight back. Oh, and that's a
Right.
good one.
Mm-hmm.
Uses the flamethrower. Literally cooks a stormtrooper. You haven't seen that before. You did see what they did to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru in Tatooine, but
Right.
That
That was different.
I think that's the first time we've seen a stormtrooper get cooked like that. And there's the whistling bird scene. I love it. And then from there he just walks right out. Okay, and then this is when all of the fobs start going off.
Right. Once he's out of the building.
Yeah. So there's some questions unanswered about how these things work.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a tracking chip on the child? Is it just to someone's DNA? Is that why they talk about chain codes? Like, what is a chain code? It's the first time we've heard this referred to.
Mm-hmm.
All we know about a chain code so far is that the last 4 digits are what year you were born in. But he knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his hand on his blaster.
What was interesting too is when Pershing still had the child, they had like a scanner on him, and the conversation that he sees or hears through his scope is the client telling him to get the sample.
Yeah.
So it's not clear exactly.
Collect the necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get to that shortly. This is where he could use IG-11's help.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of bad guys here. When I first saw this, I was like, how does he get out of this situation? This is nuts. But then when Grief Karga tells him to put the child down on the speeder, and I was like, maybe he can do something.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not expect what he actually does.
Mm-hmm.
And then pointing his blaster at the droid and telling the droid to drive. I thought that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets better too. I'm trying to skip ahead for the sake of time, but it's taking a little longer than I'd like. And then the Grief Karga blasts the droid, and the speeder kind of crumples.
Right.
And then you just slowly see the forks of the rifle coming out from underneath one of the boxes.
Right.
And then boom, one of the bounty hunters is gone, and another one's
he
gone.
disintegrates a couple.
I
of them.
love that. That was
Yeah.
so funny. So good. And then he kind of runs out of options. So when some of them get close behind him, he flames them. One last shot of the flamethrower. People like that bounty hunter that had the bug eyes. Did you
Mhm.
notice that one?
Yeah.
It wasn't the same as Forlon, but it was like the
Similar.
insectoid kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Not sure if it's a droid or not. It might actually be some kind of creature. But so it looks like all hope is lost because he's out of weapons and under fire. And then the Mandalorians. This is the first time we've ever seen this many Mandalorians in live action, or any Mandalorians for that matter. If you consider the fact that Boba Fett and Jango Fett were not actually Mandalorian.
So basically, he's saved by the cavalry. The cavalry rides in.
That's right. And these guys have probably been itching for battle for who knows how long. A very long time. They've been just trapped underground, indoors. Because they, when they're arguing earlier, when the heavy infantryman, this guy, is in arguing, he says that they're only allowed above ground one at a time.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Why did they do that?
Mhm.
Is he referring to just in armor? Are they allowed above ground in disguise? Because this guy would draw attention to himself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, he is totally kitted out with a jetpack and everything. So I would be surprised if he would get let above ground dressed like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is perfect too. I really love the way they did this, where Grief is just hiding, like he's just climbed just a little bit out of frame. That was really well done. Just out of view.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, you're like, okay, he's resourceful, but what's he gonna do in this situation? He can't draw his blaster. How convenient. Uses his grappling hook to set off the carbon freezing. And then, bang,
Mm-hmm.
gets him right in the Beskar
Well, you don't know that until.
until he wakes up afterwards. But And then the last little salute is just awesome. This was such a good episode. And so now all the Mandalorians have to relocate.
Yeah, they've got to find another place now.
So presumably our Mandalorian is planning on taking the child somewhere where it can be safe, presumably. But then how is he going to reconnect with his tribe, with his clan after the fact?
Mm-hmm.
This is a good question. We don't know the answer to. Probably we'll find out on Friday.
Right.
Or at least we'll find out where he's going on Friday. I would assume we're going to meet Cara Dune pretty soon here. But let's go back to the child. So there's some really good videos that have been put out by other people that do a lot of Star Wars content. One in particular, Star Wars Theory. He's actually a fellow Canadian. He does a really good job. And he did an in-depth analysis of whether or not the child is a clone of Yoda.
Mm-hmm. And
the timing makes sense. It could be a clone of Yoda from Episode 2 era, or it could be a clone of Yoda if they applied the same accelerated aging that they did for the clones in the Clone Wars. If they applied that to the child, then they could have taken a sample from the Jedi Temple after Episode 3, Order 66,
Mm-hmm.
because the Emperor and Darth Vader would have had unrestricted access to the Jedi Temple to go and find Yoda's room and collect a sample
Mm-hmm.
of his hair or whatever. So, yeah. So some definite possibilities that the child is a clone of Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
The child is definitely not Yoda because the timing doesn't work out. The child can't be 50 years old and be Yoda if Yoda passed away 5 years prior.
Right.
5-6 years prior.
And how old was Yoda when we see him? Like
He died at 900.
Right.
He says in the film, 800 years old you become, look as good you will not.
Mm-hmm.
But in the actual novelization, I think it is, it's official that he died close to 900
Close to
years
900,
of age.
Yeah.
And also that kind of indicates, I remember reading this too, because he says that he trained Jedi for 800 years, we can presume that the child will reach maturity in another 50 years. At about 100 is when Yoda started training Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So the child's got 50 years to go before he's
Right.
an adult. Or 25 years if he's an accelerated clone
Mm-hmm.
of Yoda. So, lots of questions.
Mhm.
But it's good.
Yeah.
It leaves the intrigue and makes you want to
Right.
watch the next episode.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a typical cliffhanger. You want to know, oh, now what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the way the shows are. They
Yeah.
leave something hanging, and you're like, I know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
But I find the way that they're doing it, there's a couple different ways of doing cliffhangers, and there's some that I find infuriating, like watching Lost is just, I can't do it
Mm-hmm.
because they don't give you anything,
Yeah.
right? They're stringing you along, they don't ever actually give you anything.
Mm-hmm.
This gave us the scene where the Mandalorian cavalry comes in,
Mhm.
that was fantastic. It was
Mhm.
awesome. Even him just rescuing the child was fantastic. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Progressing the story.
Right.
But yes, we still get a cliffhanger,
Mhm.
but we're making progress.
Yeah.
We're doing something. We're making decisions.
Yeah.
We're watching the character develop and
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, exactly.
And now instead of it just being a show about a bounty hunter, now it's about a bounty hunter who's not a bounty hunter anymore, because now he's on the run. Grief Karga is not just going to sit there
Mm-hmm.
and be grateful that he's not dead.
Right.
He's going to get even. He's going to go and get the child because then
Mhm.
he'll get another reward for returning the child again,
Right.
right? I'm not spoiling anything. This is just me hypothesizing here,
Mhm.
but that would make sense. The way that what we've seen and what we've heard from Grief Karga would indicate to me that he's going to round up whatever troops are left, load him in a speeder, and off he goes. He's going to
Mhm.
try to find the child because there's money involved, big money. But it should have probably have been a hint in episode 1 because he tried to give the Mandalorian Imperial credits. Why would he be giving him Imperial credits if he wasn't getting paid in Imperial credits? If the Empire is not connected to any kind of penal or judicial system anymore because the Empire is gone, that's what they say a few times.
They keep saying that too, and not just him.
Yeah. So then why would he be getting paid for returning prisoners in Imperial credits?
Mm-hmm.
That probably should have been a hint
Right.
in
Although,
the first episode.
keep in mind too that even the armorer says the Empire is no more.
Yeah.
Like when the two are arguing.
Yeah. But maybe the Empire isn't
Mhm.
no more. They've just
Mhm.
gone underground.
Right.
So anyway, that concludes this section where we discuss our reactions to the episode. Let's talk about our review. I've seen a few people say that they would sequence them. Episode 3 was the best. Episode 1 was the next best. Episode 2 was their least favorite. But someone said, yeah, but that's like rating them 9.6, 9.5, and 9.4. And I kind of agree with that kind of mentality. So I'm still on a 2 thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
And like way up on this episode.
Right. I think it
Fantastic.
was definitely a good episode. It advanced the story. You see the connection between the Mandalorian and the child develop. I mean, it's, he realizes, I probably shouldn't have given the child up. That was not a good idea, even though he did get the armor. I was going to mention one other thing. You mentioned the Easter egg. Did you notice that when the Mandalorian is surrounded by the other bounty hunters in Greef Karga, and Greef actually says to him, "I am your only hope." And I immediately thought of the message that Princess Leia sent to Obi-Wan.
Yes.
Right? Help me,
Yes.
Obi-Wan. You are my only hope.
I think that would be a reference though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or no, maybe. Yeah.
I just thought it was, I mean, almost the same phrase. And he's definitely not the Mandalorian's hope.
No.
He's going to try and be the Mandalorian's demise.
Nor is he his friend.
No, definitely. Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting that he literally used that phrase.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And definitely not his friend, because he suggests, when he's encouraging the Mandalorian to take a break, he suggests some things that are hinted at in Star Wars movies and Star Wars lore, but not usually referred to directly.
Mm-hmm.
He encourages him to go get a Camtono of spice, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the seedy underworld stuff
Mhm.
that Star Wars has underneath it, but
Right.
we never talk about it usually.
Yeah. Although you get the impression from this planet and from this town or whatever that it's not a nice
Backwater.
place. Yeah, it's a backwater. It's pretty dirty. It's not an ideal place. It's not like some of the cities that we saw in, episodes.
It's not Naboo.
No, definitely, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it looks pretty run down. It's a backwater, and some pretty shady elements there. So,
Yeah,
right.
it looks even seedier than Tatooine, and because there's just like nothing there.
Right, or even from episode 4. Remember when Ben is talking to Luke, and before they go into the
Oh, yeah,
is it-
on the cliff.
yeah, they're on the cliff.
The
and he
wretched
said, "You'll-"
hive of
yeah,
scum and villainy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
This
that
place is
looks
worse.
more like this place than
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and that's what George Lucas was going for, but
Mhm.
didn't have the budget to
No.
populate
Yeah.
Mos Eisley
Yeah.
the way that he wanted to.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought it was interesting. So let's get your review. You said 2 thumbs up, right?
Yeah, I definitely
Okay.
liked this one. I thought it was good. Lots of action sequences, moved the story ahead. And then now other things are up in the air, right? Like now where do the Mandalorians have to go?
And that was going to be my next talking point. Is the show is entitled The Mandalorian, but is it deliberately non-specific because it's not actually about this character?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because it's about the Mandalorian people,
Mm-hmm.
his clan, his tribe? Now this opens it up where this might actually be what the show is really about. It's about the Mandalorian people and not about one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought, someone commented that on a Facebook post, and I was like, wow, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, like the Mandalorian is a generic term.
Yeah, I loved
Not
it.
as that individual.
I loved it. So
Mhm.
I hope that's true. I hope that's.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
We'll see. We shall see. All right. We are going to jump on ahead. We're going to go to Star Wars merch. We're going to skip that other point for a second. So I didn't have anything for this section, and then I found something moments before we were going to start recording. I found a photo on Facebook taken from Star Wars launch bay at Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World, and I got excited and wished that I was at Disney World. We have a t-shirt, a gray colored t-shirt that has a photo of the Mandalorian's helmets on it with the words just the Mandalorian across the front.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty simple. We've got, those look like IG-11 Funko Pops. We've got the Vintage Collection ATST from the Mandalorian. We've got like child style, not a full helmet, just kind of like a
just a
Halloween mask.
Right.
But it's the Mandalorian's helmet in plastic. And then a few more other t-shirts, all with the actually that's Boba Fett, that doesn't count. 3 other t-shirts, there's 4 t-shirts in total. It looks like 1 for adults, 1 for ladies, and 2 for kids, I think, is what it looks like. And there's a Boba Fett shirt, that doesn't count. So, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
That was another thing, I didn't pull up an article because it's all over the place. I think it was Bob Iger. Someone committed to having truckloads, or I guess container loads, of Baby Yoda, that's what the media calls him, the child,
right,
of merchandise for the child
right,
by Christmas.
of course.
Of course. But they didn't plan that ahead of time? They're scrambling to do it now because they were going to wait
Yeah,
and see if it got panned?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's pretty crazy.
I don't know. I'm shocked that they didn't have that ready to go. It's, yeah. I'm shocked. So, I can't really do a review of that merch because I haven't bought it yet.
Seen it? Yep.
But I will when I go to Disney World shortly. Alright, let's hop on to our tech review. Let's talk about the Razor Crest. Again. I think we talked about it once already, didn't we?
Yeah, you have mentioned it. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about it again because it's just too cool to not keep talking about. The Razor Crest was designed by design veteran Doug Chiang as a practical model rather than a computer-generated effect. So that's cool. That's an interesting point to highlight is if they created a practical model, then they're using all those gimbals and specialized cameras to make the camera move past the model to create the sense of motion for the ship. So, yep.
And then, as you said, I think you mentioned previously, it's it was a military craft used to patrol local territories prior to the Empire.
Yeah.
Just a bit of background.
But so then the carbon freezing would have been a retrofit because that technology, we assume, wasn't widely used for the application of freezing people until after The Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
Presumably that's something that got picked up on because Darth Vader and the Ugnaughts on Cloud City did it first, apparently. So yeah, the Razor Crest, love it. Oh, I remember why I wanted to do the Razor Crest. In episode 1 and in episode 2, we never see it go in or out of hyperspace. So I don't know why they didn't maybe have the budget or the time or whatever. They just said forget it. Episode 3, we finally see him jumping out of and into hyperspace for the first time, which I thought was significant because I was wondering, like, is all of this within like a parsec and he doesn't need to jump? Or like what's going on here? Why does this craft not have hyperspace capabilities? But it does.
Yep.
So, but until episode 3, we didn't know that for sure.
Right, you don't see the ship actually.
We didn't
doing that.
have confirmation of that. So, okay. I think that's all I have for today. You got anything for us, Pops?
No, I think that's it. I thought it was a good episode. Looking forward to what comes next.
Can't wait for episode 4. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Let me quickly put a little plug in here for our social medias. Go and check us out on Instagram, Mando Radio on Instagram. Hit us up on Twitter, Mando Radio Pod, Pod, And you can also visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/Mando Radio Podcast. As always, you can send me an email, vern@mandoradio.com, or you can send Pops an email, pops@mandoradio.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
We hope you'll join us next time.
The Force will be with you.
Always.